Happy Friday, everybody. We are here again with Bioactive Live Q&A. It's Mark with MI Beneficials, and we have Kevin from OK Calyx and OK Calyx Genetics. Happy Friday, Kevin.
What's up, y'all? What's going on, Mark? How are you?
Excellent, dude. Been busy. Been busy with life and stay home single parent, not single parenting, but stay home rolling single. Full time through the day with two kids out of school. I know you know what that's like. You got five kids, so preaching to the choir here. But shout out to all you stay home people. And for anybody else that's just trying to be a good parent, it's not easy work, man. Jeez Louise. Um, but we're here today with Bioactive Live Q&A, and the point of the show is to connect with you guys, get your questions, and get your input into the topic at hand or beyond. So don't hesitate to throw a question into the mix at any point. We'll flag it, and then we can hopefully get to it later on in the show. And today we're talking about outdoor gardening, early summer. Maybe challenges, early summer protocols, getting ready for the heavy heat coming, and yeah, who better to talk to it about with than Kevin from OK Calyx? And saw a long video from you today, or a series of videos, kind of updating the garden. But this would be a great time to kind of maybe recap all that stuff for people who might have missed it. Kev, what's going on over there in the garden?
Yeah, man. I was out there today doing some watering, showing exactly what I've been using this year. I'd use different stuff all the time. I doesn't, I always have the same things typically, but usually every year it kind of ends up being a certain mixture that I'll just stay with. Also, once I start the watering with some nutrients in it, if it was a plant extract, a manure, then I'm going to keep those things, and I kind of go with it the whole year. I'm not trying to introduce new biology, really. That's the one thing that I don't know. I remember Chris Trump saying a while back. He said when you're growing cannabis, one of the things he said was he would probably not do is introduce new IMO2 or new IMO3 to the growing season. Use the same microbes all the way through. Just let it be the same, and that's probably like that was. But he's always talking about farming, a lot more farming than just a backyard garden, really. So like, it's just be a good idea if you have a big garden, maybe stay with the same method the whole way through. If it works, it works, and that's one thing about gardening is you do too much. It's once you got your soil down, you don't have to do much at all. I mean, you got to keep the soil moist so the roots can drink, but it's not like you got to keep on feeding and feeding. It's not like a feeding schedule, like a fox farm kind of a thing, if Athena, something like that, where you got to measure out things and you do it at a specific time. It's just like it's in good dirt. I just got to keep it wet, let the microbes do their job, and that's basically it. So keeping, I've been keeping my good no-till spots just a little um, medicated, if you will. Might be a good way to say it. Just kind of keeping I showed people what I was using. What I've been using this year is I've been the 3-year-old fermented cow manure. Uh, I'm using the turkey tail extract I made last year. I'm using the horsetail fermented plant extract I've made this year. I'm using IMO3 compost, a little seawater. The IMO2, man, I think that was it. I think that was everything that I was using. But I'll put all that into one bucket, just scoops, whatever, just a little mixture, not overdoing it, just a little bit of everything. And then I'll fill that whole bucket up with water. And then I'll take that whole 5-gallon bucket and distribute parts of it through about 5 or 6 other buckets until I kind of fill all of them up with that one bucket of stuff. So it's really not much feeding at all. It's very light feeding, but it definitely has a little bit of extra nutrients to bump it up in there. But really, it's more water. It's just keeping the soil moist, keeping the microbes happy, letting them be wet. Because if your soil's dry, y'all, that's the problem. I mean, that's why one reason plants can't handle it is because their root doesn't have moisture. But let's say your soil is kind of always a little dry, but you water it, but it's a little dry, but you water it again. If you're organic growing and you're relying on microbiology, which you are if you're organic growing, microbes can only function in a wet environment. They can't get fancy in dry environments at all. They want the wet environment. Bacteria need to create a biofilm so that they can protect themselves and move around and all that stuff. Same thing with fungi. It needs moisture, and along with other bioactive live little critters that Mark raises and things like that. There's a lot of them that like certain kind of conditions. So it's same idea. Microbes want a certain kind of condition to thrive.
So
Instead of
so
keeping
Kev,
my soil wet is what I do.
just to stop you real quick. So you're using the way that you feed, because I know some people will have like a big 50-gallon barrel with maybe like a submersible pump, but you do simpler than that, right? You just use big like 5-gallon buckets. You're mixing. You just set like 5 to 10 of them up down your bed row, right? And then are you just dumping that slowly, kind of just pouring that over and not really thinking too much about it?
Correct. I'm
Okay,
just
because I
feeding
think
the
that's
soil.
important. That I bring that up, and I think that's important because people get hung up on this stuff, and it's like you think that you need a pump and an aero mixer to be able to achieve what Kevin does, and that's just not necessarily the case. And especially if you are getting older, maybe you're not as like strong in the upper body. Not saying anything about it, but moving around a 50-gallon barrel is impossible. Full of water, but B, just having 5-gallon manageable buckets makes it so much easier to distribute, a massive amount of water without having to use the hose. So I think that's a good nugget to explain. People
Yeah,
could probably use that.
yeah. There's no doubt about it, man. The whole reasons of why I quit turning compost is exactly what you're saying. uh it starts to wear on you, your shoulders. I got 5 kids. I'm picking them up constantly. I have a business where I spot kids tumbling. I'm always using my shoulders. One of the reasons I had my one of my last shoulder surgeries is because I was carrying 2 5-gallon buckets at once, and I tore a tendon over here. I tore a ligament over here in my shoulder. I've had shoulder surgeries here. I've ripped my bicep, ripped my forearm out of place. All these things. It was all muscle stuff that was ripped and torn. And nowadays, it's like, man, I can't, as a dad, as a business owner, as a person who likes to garden, who is active and likes to do things, I don't want to just go hard and all this because something's going to tear, rip, or hurt or something like that. So, Mark, you're totally right, dude. You're not, one thing about mental health is whenever you're not able to do the things you normally do, it affects you mentally. It's not like you just sit there and it's like, okay, well, I'll just wait. No, it starts to wear on you, infects you, and you're like, I can't do what I normally did. And so you really have to think about your mental health whenever injury comes along. And so it's awful, no one wants injury at all. But Mark is right. If you think about how your garden is set up, like what I did was I moved all of my empty 5-gallon buckets to the place I wanted them in my garden. Then I filled them up. And then I went and got my 1 5-gallon bucket of stuff, right? Brought it back over to the other buckets, filled it up with one of my 5-gallon buckets that already had water in it, and just started manipulating everything in one spot. And so there's no big carrying or movement or anything like that. I was moving about 5 feet from there to the plants that I watered. But that's it. So the idea for me again is like I would set up all throughout my long no-tills, set one up every 10 feet, a 5-gallon bucket. And that gives you just a good little distance that, you can really kind of just throw it about a good 10 feet and then throw the next one the other way. So, what are we talking about?
Just a real quick question.
Yep.
Do you worry? I mean, do you like? Is your water off a well, or are you pulling off a municipal source?
Municipal source.
And are
So,
you worried about chlorine, or you really don't concern yourself with that stuff just because you can't with the logistics of what you have going on?
nailed it. Just like that. I can sit there and get into all kind. I mean, trust me, people remind me that I have chlorine in my water when I use my tap water from my hose.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'm like, hey, I
And you
get it.
do the best you can. That's the point, is you do the best you can. Like I have a 50-gallon drum that I collect rainwater off of. My garden's in an L shape, so it works perfect for me to have it sitting up on a pedestal where I can draw a bucket's worth off of it on like a spigot if I need to. But I also have a submersible pump now that I just pump out of. So the pedestal's kind of pointless at this point. But um, that works for me, but then I run out of rainwater. It doesn't rain for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
it's fast.
not, and I'm not gonna. I mean, if you start to kind of bite your nose to spite your face on that, and you're like, I'm not gonna water with my hose water because I'm on municipal and it's got chlorine, your plants are gonna suffer, unfortunately. And I've done that. I did that last summer to myself, and you end up losing plants, and it ends up hurting more than it helps anything. So do the best you can, but heard it from Kevin. I mean, don't stress it that much. Look at his garden.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. So yeah, I use that city water. And here's the thing. Yeah, it's got chlorine. It's got whatever the city puts in it or doesn't take out of it. I don't know. I have no control over this, guys. I mean, it's the water that comes through my house. We drink filtered water here anyway, but nonetheless, we bathe in this. We brush our teeth with it. Use it on the garden. One thing about other things I bring in from other people's houses, from a guy on Instagram called at Clean Clippings. He lives in my neighborhood. We've got a little friendship going on where he'll bring me mowed grass and all kinds of stuff because he's a landscaper guy. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take all the green manure and mowed grass you can bring me. But there's stuff in it, probably. I don't know. I have no idea. But I know what happens is that stuff turns hot. Microbes start to eat up. It turns white when you open it up. In about 3 days, mushrooms start sprouting from it all the time. So it's not like it's a bad thing. Besides that, you got to understand that the humic material in the soil will help balance your pH, first of all. And so when you got a lot of dark organic humus looking material, it's going to balance the rain that falls. It's going to balance the water that you put in it. It's going to adjust in a balance like it is intended to do. And you're going to be okay. And the second thing is bioremediation. Microbes can actually fix things. So even if you put some water in there that has the chlorine in it that's a little too high and well, you're killing all your biology. Well, that's all right because microbes can handle it. They've been here way longer than we have. They've been dealing with that a lot longer than we have. They can handle a little bit of that chlorine. Again, if you got good soil, it can overcome a lot of stuff. Now, you'll know when you water with your house water or your city water, like if it's toxic, your plants are going to probably not be, your soil, I should say, is maybe not going to be able to overcome the toxicity of the water. But you'll know that soon enough by the look of your plant. But if everything's cool, go with it. Like Mark said, man, you got to, I was talking to Jordan on Growcast this week. It came out on June 10th. Go listen to Growcast podcast. Me and Jordan talking, got some really good mental health stuff in there, all gardening stuff. But we were just talking about, oh shoot. Anyway, having the freedom of gardening, get to doing it your way, enjoying it, not worrying about what other people have to say, because guys, gardening is about your health mentally. It is about you being able to connect in nature, having peace, getting to see forms of nature that are efficient and effective because Mother Nature has created this shape of this cannabis plant, and it's like the most efficient structure. We can learn things from nature as we watch it grow. Efficiency. We can learn how to build, but based on the size and shapes of plants. But again, your eye likes structure, and nature gives you structure. Out of the side of your eye, you can sometimes possibly recognize a face because your brain organized a pattern to make you say, oh, is that a face over there? And you're like, oh, no, it's not. But your brain likes organization. It likes pattern. It's like form and structure. It's more pleasing to you. It's easier to your eyes. It's easier to comprehend. So the garden is all about beautiful form and structure and beauty and aesthetics and growing things near other things, learning that things that grow straight up can have climbers wrapping around it, just creating pretty stuff. And you go look at my Instagram page, you'll see it. Probably go look at Mark's. You'll just see our gardens, and they bring joy and beauty. We do it our way. We do it how we want. I use my city water. I use manure that I got out of a farmer's field that I'm sure he's not organic. I'm sure he uses antibiotics because he's got to do what he does. But look at my garden. Again, follow rules, but don't follow stupid rules. It's better to follow principles because you can apply principles in all times and all places. And my principles are try to have healthy soil. And I use what I can use, right? But the idea again, the principle is let's build healthy soil. Do whatever you can do to build healthy soil. Don't start getting into the nitty gritty of, well, they might have sprayed something on their grass, so man, I shouldn't use it. It might kill all microbes. I might destroy all of Mother Nature because I used somebody's grass that had weed killer sprayed on it. It ain't like that, guys. That is some hyped up crazy stuff for people want to just say stuff on Instagram and they have zero experience with this. They've just heard things and they just want to throw their words out there and it's meaningless. It all is about who has experienced it, who has done it before, who's got their hands dirty and tried it, and who can teach all of us, right? It's the guy who actually tried it and did it. He's the guy who has value. He's the guy in our community that can teach all of us. So don't be the guy who doesn't try. Be the guy that tries so you can teach all of us what's going on. Don't worry about what other people have to say. Whew. All right, man.
And don't attack the guy that's just sharing how he does it. That's the other thing. I mean, I don't know I don't know the comments that you're specifically referring to, but I know how it feels when you share information and then you just feel like you're getting attacked, you know, but
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a better way to do it, then by all means share that. Share that with people and let them make the choice. Let them see, you know. Um so anyways, back to the garden. How are you so we went through your inputs, right? You're using a lot of JLF. Is there any specific JLF that you use week in, week out?
Well, in my so like in my no-tills that are brand new this year, I have been dumping JLF in those. And it's just the same. It's just a universal JLF. It's just
Right.
everything in the bucket.
It's a nutrient dense, all inclusive, full spec.
Liquid
Uh,
fertilizer.
so you're
Yeah.
not really concerned at all about like crop steering, whereas like, you know, you want like heavier nitrogen here in the veg cycle, and then you want more PK later on when you flip and all that happy horse shit. You just rely on the simplicity of the whole plant, really.
Yeah, because the microbes go harvest what the plant needs. So if you got good soil, it's got all those elements in there. There's no need to have at this time I feed nitrogen. Now I'm going to switch and feed this. It's all about good organic material with good microbiology, breaking all that down, and then everything's available to the soil. Everything is available to the plants and the microbes. So that's how Mother Nature does it too. There isn't a time where nitrogen falls and then a time where phosphorus and potassium fall. It all falls together. It all gets broken down together. It all falls basically at the same time of a season. And that's kind of the idea of Jadam. You're just using your whenever everything falls down to the ground, you're collecting it, putting in your bucket, adding your water, letting the biology break it down, and then there's your fertilizer. And you're just imitating nature as best you can. So it's way easier. You can definitely do it other ways and other methods, but from what I've come to feel through experience, could be totally wrong here, but I think I'm totally right. A lot of these growing liquid bottled fertilizers that come with like use this at this time and this at this time, it's just part of a commercial. It's a business. It's a product. It's being sold, and you'll buy it because they made it look important to you. Whereas, guys, I go and cut the grass. I go and cut grass that gets tall around my house. Stick it in my JLF bucket. Keep it below the water, and just let it sit and putrefy. It rots away. It liquefies into liquid death, which is fertilizer for plants. It costs zero. It costs nothing. It cleans up your yard. It's more efficient and effective with the things around your house. You're learning to recycle. You're learning that this is actually a sustainable method because there's always going to be grass growing around your house. So you can always have JLF going, and JLF will work indoor. It will work outdoor. You can lower pH with JLF. And one way you can mess around with the JLF. Let's go here real quick with this, Mark, with JLF. One way you can mess around with JLF, if you have a bucket of JLF, get a 5-gallon bucket of water and give yourself, 2 or 3 inches at the top of space because you're going to add more liquid through the JLF. You need a little room. But take the pH of the water first with no JLF. Like mine would read about 8.2 when it comes out of my tap here that I use. I know that if I use 2 quarts exactly 2 quarts of JLF. And my JLF is over 2 years old right now. But when I was growing indoors last fall, 2 quarts of JLF into that 5 gallon bucket of water drops it right to 6.2 every time. The plants loved it. And that's exact. So I did that one time. I'm like, good to go. Never pH measured again. Just did 2 quarts of JLF, fed everybody. 2 quarts of JLF, fed every time. Never measured anything. Super duper easy, simple method that works perfect. You don't have to worry about any of the other measurements or any of the other specifications of nutrients and things like that, pH and EC and all those things. It's JLF, man. Figure out the pH to 6.2 or so, wherever you want it, maybe 6 point, maybe 5.8, and then use that much JLF with it every single time. You are good to go. Cheap as can be. So yeah, I use JLF, but in my good no-till spots, I hardly ever use JLF. Like in the fall, I use JLF again. I use what Jadam calls additional fertilizer. You
You're
have a
you're
plate,
you're using that after the crop has been harvested, not necessarily even when you're in flower.
right?
But I think the important thing with that is that you're constantly feeding your beds with organic matter.
Yep.
They go hand in hand, right? Like you're just basically like giving the plants what they need to get rooted now, with a little JLF early, but you're relying on Kevin is constantly doing work with building organic matter up in the garden. So I don't think that one or the other is more would be more important. I think that together they're like it's like a union that is really what works for you. Um, and I think it would honestly work for everybody because you're just relying on nature, and that's not it's not like a special thing to Kevin. It's just Kevin is using nature at a higher level, and so just real quick to digress, and then we'll move forward here. Just a couple, just how kind of contentious the water discussion is using tap water. Steve OG 13750 said from Instagram. He said he's been using New York City tap water for 30 plus years in gardening. Um, and then uh, and then there's other people commenting that, the city water where they live is extremely rough and they need to double filter it. And so I guess what it boils down to is what your sensitivity level is to things like what's in the tap water. And the other thing is that there are public records available. They do test your tap water. You just have to Google search it. I'm sure your city lists it. They'll tell you if there's chloramines in there. They'll tell you if there's chlorines in there and stuff like that. Um, just because Kevin's water is amazing, maybe the water where you are is horrendous, and respect to that too. I guess it's really just a situational thing, but again, it's just sharing what works for us. And again, I mean I use tap water and I know what's in mine. It's just chlorine. It's not chloramines, um, but it doesn't really affect it. So moving forward, Kevin, on that. Uh, are you keeping? Are you like? Are you grow? Somebody asked, are you growing any nitrogen fixing companion plants? Do you have cover crop that you grow, or do you mulch?
Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, um, I grow all kinds of. I So what I like to do is my growing style is maybe a little wild, but Mother Nature's wild. Wild, everything grows together. It all grows in a big clumpy bunch, and things mix and match, and kind of one thing might take over, and it's wild looking. And so that was the idea, and kind of the inspiration for my no-tills was like I want it just to be kind of wild. So I got tomatoes going straight down the middle. I've got sunflowers on one side. I've got like borage and amaranth on other sides. I've got some corn mixed in on the ends, cucumber arches. And so everything just kind of mixed in. And I kind of really like it that way. And I'm actually realizing I could have packed more in and made it work in a certain manner. I'd have to remove some of the sunflowers because the foliage just gets so big. I was just ripping all the foliage off my sunflowers, which was a method that totally worked. And that's something we have down to talk about possibly. But yeah, clover, all the little tubers that are growing, like all the brassicas. I grow lots of kales and mustard greens, Brussels sprouts, all kinds of pea. I'll grow peas also. Peas are good. So yeah, I grow all those, and then you just chop and drop all that back down. And anything from your food scraps at the table that you don't eat, but I've been putting it. I've been putting that right back down. I was going to actually say that during the JLF talk. There's a time of the year when it's more effective to use organic matter in a certain way. Like if you're low on JLF, you need to put your organic matter in your JLF bucket and get your JLF liquid back up. If you've got JLF, then you need to use your organic material in your no-till spots, like Mark was saying I do, and constantly trying to add that, because that's what turns back into actually good soil. It's what the shredders will start to live in, and the microbiology starts to live in, and that dark look starts to happen from organic matter constantly falling down and breaking down. Down here in the grass layer and below, you might have dirt and clay, and then you might have some rock. It's just not what you want. You're trying to create a soil by having organic material. So organic material brings shredders also. That's one good thing about it. If you put it in your garden, it's going to bring arthropods, it's going to bring worms, it's going to bring all kinds of stuff in there. So good and bad, whether you think it's good or bad or not, it brings it, and it's fine because they're just eating stuff up. you know um
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with that completely. And you want them to be around. You want beneficials hanging in the soil because that's where your pests are going to come from too. So if you keep that soil rearing with life and the competition and predation going on down there, that's going to help you a lot with other issues downstream. That's both indoor and outdoors. But outdoors, you need to have that food source. Otherwise, they're going to move on to where the better food source is, and it's going to be where there's mulch and you, green matter that's breaking down. So, and for me, like with my cover crop, so what I like to use is well, so if you're really going for like a heavy nitrogen kind of positive delta, like you're looking for the most nitrogen out of the situation, using cowpeas and buckwheat is a really good scenario. They letting them grow big through the season, and I did this last year, letting them really go wild. Like they take over. And you have to really be vigilant to keep spot available for like your vegetables and stuff like that, because they will just literally just blow up. And
yeah,
cowpea
you got to keep
buckwheat
peace control.
yeah, buckwheat will grow 5 feet tall easy, in a month in the summer, or like a few weeks in the summer. It just gets out of control. So it's good though, that for that reason, because you can chop it back a lot and use that as additional mulch. You don't have to import or do any like legwork for mulch. You just have to chop it and drop it down. And that's my philosophy with cover crop and my hugel, is like I'll get like volunteers and stuff like that. I'll just let it grow out a little bit, and then like once it gets to a sizable plant, or I'm ready to plant my vegetables, I'm just going to chop it down, and it gets broken down quick. You'd be amazed in the summer how fast it gets broken down.
Yeah. you know
But yeah,
yeah, Mark is exactly right. That organic material, it will help hold so much more moisture, and that's why it brings those little critters in also, is because a little bit of like a vegetative, like a sunflower leaf or a zucchini leaf or something that's kind of big and watery, man, it'll just stay moist under there, and you'll see all kinds of bugs when you lift the big zucchini leaves up, especially zucchinis. They're super watery. But the thing about this is, we're talking about kind of maintaining your garden and the soil health and all that stuff. Keep your soil covered all the time. Always covered. It needs to have mowed grass, leaves, whatever it is. Don't let any of your soil be exposed, and you will have good moist soil constantly. Your plants will just grow better. After a good rain and the sun comes out, they're just like doing that. I mean, you can replicate that on a good hot day, even though it doesn't rain. If you want, like it's like right now in Oklahoma, it's about 8:30. The sun is still out, but it's cool. It's nice. Nothing's going to evaporate. The temperatures are going down. If you water right now, that water is going to be on those plants for 12 or 15 hours before it's going to evaporate in the hot sun around 4 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. So watering at night, best thing to do. It's going to absorb and sit there, and they're just going to drink their fill. And the next day, boom, there they are. But that's why it's so important to have that moisture, and organic material totally helps holding the moisture in. That's one thing that we've got on the list here to talk about is the dealing with watering. Because when it gets hot, and it's almost 100 degrees in Oklahoma today. It was hot. I got in my swimming pool, and it dries everything out fast, especially my hanging pots that I've got in my arches that my cucumbers are growing on. I've got these hanging pots. They're real pretty. They'll dry out every day. I'm gonna have to go water them after the show because they're dried out. But that's because they're in the air. They're exposed. That's the point. Get it down. If you get your soil down in the ground and get it covered where that wind's not hitting it and the heat's not hitting it so much, it's gonna maintain. And that's a big deal, especially if, like we were talking earlier, you're dealing with well water or a certain amount of water that you get to use, or like you don't want to keep toting 5-gallon buckets across your yard because it's hurting your body. Well, get a lot of organic matter on there. It's going to cut back on the watering that you have to do.
Think about that, the fact that dirt and soil is dark, it's brown, black, right? And the sun's going to cook that hot. So it's like just from that concept alone, keeping it protected is so important. And this is one thing I like with me. I have a lot of leaves available, so I just keep stockpiles of leaves. Aside my garden, I don't really necessarily care how it looks visually. Um, and being able to pull from that pile of leaves, it's kind of like I keep it dry on purpose, right? Like I keep it on the side dry because I'll pull those leaves over, because literally right now, I mean, I had 6 inches of leaves on these beds that I put on there in early May, and it's gone. It's now exposed soil, so it's time to now reapply more mulch, whatever you have available. Leaves are great, whatever's there. Um, and like Rick said, keeping a lot of chop and drop available will keep the grays off of your plants. But this is a scenario where I'm like, outdoors grays are fucking badass, man. I'll take them all day. I don't even give a shit, especially with the healthy big plant. And this is why we like to harden off our seedlings before they go into the garden, because they're going into this heavy bioactive kind of unfriendly environment. Where if they're not ready to shoot new roots and get down into it, then they're gonna struggle because there is so much going on in that humic top mulch layer. So yeah, that's a good point, Rick. Keeping the garden fed, like keeping the soil fed, that's another good reason why there you can't go wrong with excess vegetative green manure, green matter, like Kevin constantly is doing in his garden.
I was going to mention another thing on the soil maintenance. This this year, I bit my tongue, y'all. My tongue's swollen. I keep sounding like I like this. I like going to the dentist. I bit my tongue hard. Now, I had a friend give me some Roots Organic. And I used to use Roots Organic back in the day before I knew how to make my own stuff. I liked Roots Organic actually. It was easy, nice little grow pack, the green one, and then the bloom one, the red one. I loved it because you could top dress or you could feed it in, and it was real. I liked it a lot. He gave me that bag, and I was like, heck yeah, I'm gonna take this. And I've been. You asked me if I applied nitrogen, and I totally forgot about this. This might count as that, but I applied the grow as just a top dress because I'm not gonna let it sit there and do nothing. That's something. That's something
You
that
just have it. You had it. You're gonna use it.
I'm going to use it. That's right. And I want everybody to understand I know how to make everything I need to make. I don't need anything from any place. I will go out into the woods and I know how to create it all myself. And that's just because I love to do it and I learned how to do it. And I teach you all how to do it too. But if somebody's going to give me a bag of stuff that's beneficial to my garden, I've used it before, and so it's a little organic package or something, I'm going to use it. Don't be stupid. Seriously, don't let somebody, because on my Instagram, I hear crazy stuff all the time. I don't answer anybody, but you hear the comments, and you hear people saying you're cheating if you use something and you call yourself organic. Like if you use something bought and you're trying to say you're all organic, well, you don't know if that's really organic or not. And it's like, guys, come on. So I'm not that guy. I'm wiser than that. I can put pride aside and allow common sense to guide. And I'm going to say that stuff is beneficial. Kid Mac is the guy that gave it to me. If he's on here, Kid Mac, shout out to him. Um, I'm going to use it, and it's not cheating. I've had to try to explain this before. It's not cheating. Even Jadam says you can add extra things to your JLF. It's in the Jadam book, the second edition. You can add different stuff. He said you can add other things besides what I talk about because other things have value. And I have dumped bags, not a whole bag, but I've dumped a little bit of nutrient in my JLF just because it's going to be beneficial. It's going to increase the density of the nutrient in there. Nothing wrong with it. So again, don't follow dumb rules. Follow principles. I'm trying to build good soil is my number one principle. Will this stuff help my soil? It certainly will. The equation equals use it. So use it, even if you're switching over to organics. When I totally started switching over to organics, I still used all of my Fox Pharma stuff because I bought it and I'm still going to use it. The plants can still benefit from it. I'm sure the soil can, microbes might get torched by it, but I still used it all because I spent my money on it. And that's a good thing to do, I think.
So let's talk quick about some plant maintenance. I think we're a little bit behind you, so this might be helpful information as far as the grow season. I mean, you guys have just based on your videos and pictures, your plants are bigger than ours are right now. I mean,
Yeah.
we're like the just to give you an idea of how different we are here in Michigan. So I grew up in New York, Western New York. And the saying around there was knee high by the 4th of July when it came to corn. Now, in your cornfield right now, not your cornfield, but in cornfields around you, how tall do you think the corn is by the 4th of July?
Well, we'll be eating corn on about June 20th.
See, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, so that's
We
the
have here. Sorry, at my hometown here, we have a festival on January 25th. This the 26th weekend of June, and it's the Green Corn Festival because we harvest our corn. My corn is getting close to being done. My corn is about 5 feet tall right now.
right where our corn is not even knee high.
Yeah,
So that's a
we
that
need an extra probably 2 months of growing, man.
yeah.
Because a lot of my stuff, because I start everything from seed, and so I can start it February inside on a nice day, take everything outside, let it grow in the sun, bring things back in, and then start to harden them up. The cannabis plants I have out there, the big ones, they went through 4 freezes and made it in Oklahoma. 4 freezes. Meaning the temperature dropped below 32. And they got a little nippy, some things kind of died off, but they're trucking, dude. They're good. So again, good Oklahoma genetics growing in my backyard right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage to have that longer grow season. But I will say that I mean, you think of the Emerald Triangle as like where these monster trees get grown, and just talk to my boys Connor Terp Wizard or Nick Risden from Lime Rising Farms. Those guys or myself. I mean, I can't grow taller than 6 feet, but I assure you my friend Kyle from Organomelts, these guys grow 10 to 14 foot tall monster plants. So for whatever reason, nature has its like snapback where we get big ass plants anyways. I just think our transition period is like maybe a little bit longer. And they just go fucking wild when you start going into that flower. It's like a month long a transition stretch. I don't know what it is, but so yeah. Anyways, back to plant maintenance. So what are you doing for I guess ganja right now? Are you worried about worms and stuff like that? Are you spraying anything?
Yeah, so I just saw the first green caterpillar today. Just about as big across as my fingernail, curls up in a tight little ball constantly, a little coil. And so they're here. I've seen the white moths flying around and all that stuff. And there's a certain few moths that'll lay their eggs right now. And they're just hanging, or right now or later on a little bit, but those eggs are going to hang out and they're going to hatch and there'll be these itty little bitty baby larvae that you will not see, and the buds will grow around them, and they're going to chew that bud up in about week 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 8, and they're just done after that. So I'm preparing for all that. I'll be spraying. I haven't sprayed BT yet. Bacillus thuringiensis. I have not sprayed that yet. You have a specific state, the specific one you always say, Mark. What is it?
Yeah, so it's BT Kerstaki.
For stocky.
And there's a couple products. I switched this year to a product called Thuringicide, I believe it's
Yeah,
called, but
I've seen it.
it's an OMRI listed liquid that only affects caterpillars, anything moth or butterfly even related. It's only going to affect the plant that you spray it on, which is beautiful. So it's not like it's going to affect like the natural migration of butterflies or anything like that. But
And it's
this
a
is a,
bacteria.
it's yes, it's like the BT that you think of, BTI, which is for mosquitoes and fungus gnats, and it works the same exact way. When they consume it, it gets on the leaf, they consume it, and it kills them basically from the inside out, and it stops them from eating like basically immediately. So getting ahead of them is really important because, as we've talked about before a lot, once they get into the buds, like when you get into flower, you really don't want them around. It's okay to see them on the plants right now. Kevin's not knee jerking to really hit these plants right now or anything like that, but
I'm aware though,
it's serious when you start getting anywhere for these fuckers to hide. So and being ahead of it is going to be helpful. So having those worms when the plant's like going through veg and stuff can fuck up your growth. So starting to think about that right now is a good idea. The other product was BT Monterey as another product that I've used. It's
yeah.
fine. They work the same.
Yeah, you can
Same
find
thing.
that at Walmart, real easy to find. And it is a good one. And guys, you will want to use it if you're growing outside. I don't know about any place in Oklahoma, or sorry, in America that doesn't get caterpillars and all that stuff. But BT is something you want to look into because it will totally save your cannabis because those suckers will chew it up. It's awful. Now, here's what I've been spraying on my cannabis. And again, I try not to spray anything that I do not have to. I try not to spray at all. If I look at my stuff too, I'm looking, I've got pictures of assassin bugs. They're all over my plants, man, and they're just hammering these Japanese beetles. They'll just impale and that little thing on the end of their head. Just sit there and suck them dry. We got them. We got baby praying mantis everywhere. There's a cocoon that hatched somewhere, but I got them all over the place now. I've been looking for that cocoon. I cannot find it. But I've had that. It happens every summer. We get little baby cat, praying mantis all over the place. We got ladybugs all over, ladybug larvae, and the list goes on of all kinds of beneficials that are out there battling, constantly for me. But with the cannabis, I've been using EM5 and Jadam sulfur. And I've been using a very light spray of that. I've only sprayed it probably 2 or 3 times, maybe. I can't remember, but I did spray last night of another application of that. And the sulfur just kind of helps. It'll help. The sulfur helps with powdery mildew, things like that. And the zucchini I'm growing, and the zucchini and the zinnias will constantly have powdery mildew on them, and that will transfer to my plants. And so I'm just being proactive. I'm hitting things with sulfur and trying to keep it on my plants so that if those spores hit, come in contact with sulfur, it's going to stop.
So they won't. My understanding is that powdery mildew will not transfer to your cannabis plants. It's a different type of powdery mildew. I don't know if you know different, and
I
not
don't.
to be contentious, but
No, yeah, I know.
uh, something to look into maybe. I don't know, but I'm not saying I'd say still use sulfur because if you've dealt with powdery mildew, especially in fucking veg, if you see it in veg on your plants, you got problems going into flower, man. I'm telling you, it just stays on that plant. It lives there and shit. It's oh,
Well, what?
I hate powdery mildew. Just like everybody else does. And if you've never had it, you're lucky. But take it seriously. Real quick, is BT safe for honeybees? Yes. this is not like spinosad, where they say when you use spinosad, and that would be one thing if you're having horrible thrip issues, you could use it. I would say spray that dark at night and make sure that it stays on your cannabis plants because there's not going to be overnighting bees on there. And spinosad will kill honeybees, so that's one thing you do need to consider. But BT does not affect at all honeybees.
I use some other things that I'll use. Um, and I use this on my cucumbers and zucchini because the two issues that I'm having right now is cucumber bugs, which are kind of a teardrop shaped looking yellow bug with black dots on it, and the squash bug, which looks like a tank to me. It's just kind of like this squarish body, and it's gray, and just and it'll have babies all the time. And I am battling them, and I'm actually going through a list of IPM sprays that I've got, seeing what will do the best right now. And that list is the Jadam sulfur, the EM5 OHN, and then that's kind of like one style of sprays I'm using, and the other ones would be like a little bit of neem. I hardly ever use neem, guys, but it's terrible. These things they consume my pea plants. I had to rip all my pea plants up and start all over because they consume those. And so I'm just constantly battling on my cucumbers and zucchini, different sprays at very, just kind of not heavy. I'm not trying to burn everything up, but just a little bit of light spray, because you can see they go away. You'll start, when they're bad, they're everywhere. Turn a leaf over, poof, all over. You get a good spray of something, turn a leaf over, you might see a few, maybe one or two, and you're like, okay, numbers going down. That's what we want to see.
What's
And so,
working? Anything?
well, I think the neem actually kind of helped the best, but it's not killing the eggs. The eggs are all over the place. That's the issue. I can kill these bugs with a horticulture soap, that's kind of thick with all kinds of junk. It's organic still. Um, the neem, regalia, venerate. Those are some other ones I've been using, but I think the neem has actually, when I spray it on there, it actually kind of, the numbers go down. But I still haven't got them all dead because I can't get the eggs killed. That's the thing. That's what I'm having a problem with now.
Um, the one thing that I do know, so Gobble Grows, love you,
Yeah,
buddy.
good gobble grows.
Appreciate you tuning in again, man. You can trellis squash and zook vertical to help battle squash boring beetles for sure.
Right.
Um, the other thing that helps is here would be having some banker plants somewhere else, where something that's maybe even more attractive than your vegetables. So having some like kind of ornamental squash, or like gourd or something in the same family would
I've
attract
got
them. You've got those too, probably,
I've
right?
got squash right beside. They're not big at all. They're small because they're just, the leaves are constantly being bit, and they just won't grow. That's what they do. They don't want to kill the whole plant. They just live on it. They'll move to another plant, live on it, but you'll see everything wither and nothing will grow. It'll just feed them. You're feeding bugs. That's it. Um,
Is it all over the place? I mean, do you have
on the
like
ground.
no, but I mean, like, do you have cucumbers in more than one spot in the garden that's getting affected by this,
Yeah,
or is it just
both
only in one spot?
no, both sets of cucumbers, both spots of cucumbers, and the squash spot. That's the only place they are right now.
See, we get these things. We don't get those here. We these things called blister beetles, and we get some types of squash boring beetles, but it doesn't really seem to affect my garden ever. Like it's not something that I ever worry about. Um, and the only way that I can handle those is by manually removing them, and like hitting them really hard, like all over the plant, like just having a cup of soapy water. But if you have them in a huge space, that's not going to work. If it's more systemic, it's a little bit more than that. So I think it'd be interesting to hear back from you, what's working next week, and or maybe getting an Instagram update. I'm sure you were planning that anyways, but
Yeah.
um, that's one of those tough ones because that's a hard shell body, so it's not going to get affected by much. And if you don't want to go with something like pyrethrins, If it's something you just refuse to spray, then you're limited to things like neem, soapy water spray, insecticidal soaps, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, with the big ones, man, I just squish them on my fingers. If I can see them at all, I just squish them. Boop, 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 boop. I mean, that eliminates a lot. I kill hundreds of them that way, but they're on the ground mostly, and that's where I'm really trying to hit the sprays. I'm not spraying the plant or the vegetables. It's just down on the ground. That's where they like to breed. That's where the babies are. The big ones will crawl up to the top, and that's when I just kill all them. So yeah, I try not to because we eating every bit of this, and that you can't get this in the stores. You cannot get this kind of produce in the stores. This is nothing but pure nutrients in vegetable form.
Grown the way it's supposed to, not the 28-day seed to harvest name brand lettuce. I won't even need to say the name. Um, with nothing but water packed into it, green water filled leaves, basically. So, all right, let real quick. Actually, where were
Yeah,
we?
got a lot of comments, man. I just started looking at everything.
I know we got some questions too that we can get into. Let's talk about. Let's wrap it up with rabbits. I feel like a lot of people are dealing with rabbits. They're fucking everywhere and they bang like rabbits. So,
Dude, their
uh,
rabbits are crazy this year around here.
yeah. Yeah, and I like that waiting for the hawks to move in is like watching paint dry, and then the hawks move in and there's so many spots for them to hide in my garden anyways, so it's like what are you doing for do you have a fenced in backyard, but are you having to go further than that to protect?
So what I'm doing with the rabbits, man, I'm letting them live out here, hang out. I'm letting them nibble on things. But what I've come to find is they're not eating anything in my garden. They, sorry, they'll nibble on new plants if I don't spray like some kind of OHNEM5, something that's a little irritant to them. They won't mess with them when I have that on them. They might eat like the early sunflowers. They've nibbled those, but mostly they're eating clover. That's it. They like to just eat that one thing. They just go to grass in the they're you're used to eating grass in the yard, so they might nibble on a few things, but they go to what's always around and what they've evolved on, and that's grass in the yard. The other thing you worry about is turtles. We're just starting to see a few turtles in the yard because they're starting to smell these fruits and things like that. I guess they smell. I don't know how they know. How they know they're here, but we're actually catching these turtles and keeping them in a tote right now because we're going to take them to that Green Corn Festival because they have turtle races and frog races and all that stuff. But the turtles, they'll chow down. They will get after it.
That's an interesting pest to consider because that's not something we deal with here either. I don't know if it's just that they have enough eat going on elsewhere, or and maybe we do. I just it's not something I've ever heard of. Um, but I would imagine that having so the only way that I've dealt with the rabbits in my yard is by actually getting wire, galvanized rabbit fence, and having a physical barrier because they do destroy a lot of my shit. Any lettuce that I try to grow, um, what else were they crushing?
Rusty Nail said 22.
Basically, all my Brussels sprouts, brachioles, they'll eat lettuce. So like I can't get any. There was a point where I couldn't get anything going, and I had deer netting, which is plastic net, right? And it's like 7 feet tall. I wrapped it over my fence that has slats that these rabbits can get through, and I literally sat there and watched a rabbit bite it strand by strand, go right through my fence, and then I'm like, at that point I think the thing is stuck in there, so I go out to scare it because I thought I didn't think it was smart enough. And when I go out there to go to try to like nab it, I wasn't gonna hurt it or anything, but I was just gonna fucking scare it and get the fuck out of my property. It goes right back out the little slit through the fence that it just made. So they're cunning little bastards. They're definitely not to be taken lightly, especially like it like You're ahead of us. Like you said, you got 2 months more than we do as far as the growing season. Our growing season's short, so to lose a seedling is not good. It's like
Yeah,
it can end that dream, that hope of that plant, especially with what we're talking about with these plants that you're not going to find in the store. I mean, like I'm growing seeds that I bought and seeded out in the basement from February. So it's brutal for me.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
see, we're gonna have at least three. Well, I'll have at least 3 seasons within my growing season, if you will, because I start off early growing tons of potatoes everywhere. And I'll harvest them a little bit early when those taters are about that big or smaller. And because they're new potatoes, I love them, little bitty ones. And I'll harvest all the potatoes, and then I have time to plant all of my tomatoes, peppers, peas, okra, corn, all that stuff. Potatoes are all out of the way. While that's all growing, I'll be tearing those onions out. I'll be probably planting some cannabis in there at that time. I'll plant some new peppers, some new sunflowers. As the cucumbers die off and the squash die off, I'll probably start planting just some flowers, some new stuff. Because if I can plant by the end of June, new seeds, I have July, August, September, October, and sometimes even into early November that things will still grow. I mean, that's 5 months. It's starting at the end of this month. I could potentially and a lot of vegetables are about a 60-day thing. So you start it, and in 2 months you should start
yep.
getting some fruit.
Yeah, you truly have two growing seasons. Here we have to, if you want to be true sustenance living through the summertime, which is really, and then preservation is a different conversation, being able to feed yourself for what you grow through the year. But here you need to really have staggered like cycle because you're only going to really be able to get one good cycle in by early October. It's frosting over, so there's definitely certain things we can grow two rounds in, but there's a lot of stuff that we're limited, so it's definitely a difference. So let's get into some questions here.
Yeah, good.
First one, what do you guys use for flea beetles? Do you ever deal with flea beetles, Kev?
I don't know what a flea beetle is exactly.
So flea beetles, I don't know much about them, but
They look
there are natural garden predators to them. So having flowers and things that will draw in your green lacewings, ladybugs,
Can't see it.
can't see it at all.
We have flea beetles then. If that's what you call them, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we would call them like leaf beetles or even squash beetles sometimes with that long stripe on them. But we
you
have those.
can Yeah, you can use probably the same thing that the gambit Kevin is running right now with his other beetles. I just think they're going to be less resilient than what you're dealing with, Kevin, because
The cucumber.
yeah, they're a lot
Yeah.
smaller and they also are affected by a lot more things. So a couple things again,
Dahlia, venerate, um, the neem, a little bit of neem, jadam, sulfur, those things.
and then like I was just reading up because I saw your comment, and one thing that I was reading was using some isopropyl alcohol and liquid soap and just spraying it at nighttime on them. I don't know why that would affect them, but I'm assuming that they're more of a soft-bodied insect than the cucumber beetles or these um, harder, bigger beetles that you might deal with that are way more resilient. So if they have a soft body, they're going to be more affected by those sprays. Rick Easley wants to know about using his dehumidifier water.
Yeah, you can. I've used it straight. I've watered my plants with it. Just taking it from the dehumidifier, put it right back in. Now, your dehumidifier will collect stuff, mineralized stuff. So just keep it cleaned a little bit. And even if it's got a little bit of something in there, it still works. It's just stuff that's collected from the very water it's absorbing. And so yeah, I've used it before. Use it on a tester. That's the best thing. Because again, me saying, yeah, I do it, well, that doesn't mean it's going to work perfectly in your environment because things are different. I don't know all the variables. So use it on a tester, use one plant, Outside, what's always fun with the volunteers that show up, those are the testers. I've been dumping cow manure instead of the cow manure and the horsetail fermented plant extract, the IMO2, IMO3 mix that I made today. I've been dumping it straight on my testers, just like a nice foliar, man, just drenching it. And those girls are loving it. And it's fun to test. You're going to see how far you can take it, what you can do with your nutrients, what a plant can handle. So use it on a volunteer if you got one outside.
Big E wants to know I get thrips, white flies, and spider mites every year. I'm in the desert, so I stay away from oils. Any advice on IPM that works in a 100-degree environment?
So the one thing that I have always used if I ever get some kind of thrip or some kind of mite, infestation or just too many going on, and it's only on indoor growing that I use this, because outdoor growing you can deal with it different ways. But indoor growing, I use Azamax. It's an OMRI listed thing, so check out Azamax, and it really hammers those little mites. I mean, it smokes them every time. I've had to use them. The last time I had to use Azamax was about a year and a half ago, when I brought some, and I don't know why I did this, but I did. I bought some plants at Lowe's, and they're real pretty, and I actually put them in my indoor tent with a couple of plants. And within, a month, I'm like, what the heck? Where'd this all come from? It totally came from those plants I brought in. So, yeah, I make dumb moves too. But I just wanted the beauty in there, because I wasn't growing many. And I was like, I'm going to get some flowers in here and make it like an indoor setting.
Uh,
Good.
the only thing I was gonna say was, so it's a little tougher because it's so hot out there. You're limited on your predatory species. Thrips, I don't ever truly worry about. And white flies are not really a big issue. So to me, the biggest issue is the spider mites. And if they're like a debilitating level of spider mites, there is something you can consider, especially if you're growing kind of like a bioactive garden, right? Where you have other plants, companion plants, other things that are growing, cover crops, stuff like that. Would be employing the use of the Gallindromus acidonalis mite. They're a specialist mite that works really well in very hot, dry environments. It's like a kind of like a more of an arid desert species of predatory mite. It is something we'd carry. There's more information on our site about them, but they're really effective in preventing. It's going to be less of a dose, but like I said, if you have a bioactive kind of environment where you have other banker plants and stuff that will have pests, that will be food for these predators. So you really do kind of need that if you're going to plan on using that. But that's one way you could keep it truly organic, is start with a preventative applications, like probably a week or 2 weeks before you start seeing that yearly outside. These are naturally occurring insects. So as long as they have some sort of food to eat, they will continue to reproduce and hang around that area. So they will protect your garden, and they'll especially go into action if you have active spider mites, because you know that there's food there. It's a simple equation. If there's food to eat, they're going to reproduce. And that's why it's kind of down to a science when it comes to biocontrols. Um, Puff Pass wants to know, hey guys, I've been trying to make my first totes of IMO3. They started inside and never quite got past 100 to 110 degrees for
Right.
long. How long would you say a good IMO3 gets hot for?
Well, so when I would look at this sentence, it would be the the phrase "a good IMO3." That's what we would have to define, because right now it sounds like you're thinking it's not maybe a good IMO3, and what did you need to do to make it a good IMO3? Whereas when I look at that part where it says that it never got quite past 100 to 110 degrees, okay, don't worry about it. The microbiology in your soil is not going to get much past 100 or 110 degrees either, right? It's just not. So the microbes that you grew, if you will, in that tote are microbes that like to function at around 100 to 110 degrees. That's the idea of structuring an IMO3. You can vary temperatures. Like compost is thermophilic. That means it's gone above about 150 for a few, extended period of time. And this killed certain microbes that are also pathogens. But that IMO3 is good. If it got to 100 to 110 heated up, you're good to go. Because what you're going to do is, if I were you, let it sit there still. Just let it sit there. It's done. It's now in storage. It's what it's doing. You let it sit there. And if it heats up a little more in the sun, it's probably going to kick those microbes in just a little bit even more. But what you start to look for is kind of when you get down in there in the bottom and you might kind of start seeing a little bit of fuzz, a little bit of white. You see that, you are good to go. You've got a good IMO3 going. Use it.
Totally agree with that. Another place where people just get hung up is just overthinking it, right? Um, and I think that that's a simple way of thinking it, of conceptualizing it. Are there Happy Dirt Dude wants to know, are there any Jadam or natural farming methods for grasshoppers?
Man, not that I'm aware of. Trying to have an irritant on your plant is the best thing, but grasshoppers, they just kind of come and they go. I never have them come and stay. They just kind of come for a week or two, and you're like, golly, these things are getting bad out here. I shake my plants hard. I'll shake them like that. I'm not dealing with hundreds of plants. I only got a few plants out here, so I shake every big plant in the morning, at night, or once in a while. You'll shake June bugs off, moss off, grasshoppers off, all kinds of stuff. Doesn't mean they're not coming back. It just means you're disturbing the environment that they thought was nice and peaceful, and they might want to go find some other environment that is peaceful because you're some dude coming around shaking up their bush all the time. So that's one way I do it for real, flicking them off, being the hunter yourself, being the IPM yourself. I mean, it doesn't take that much work to really kind of go through some of your plants and just be like, okay, I'm seeing things, eggs on here. I'm seeing a larva. Oh, there's a caterpillar, something like that. And just clean your plants like a monkey cleans itself.
So there actually is a product, and it's a non-contact product, so it doesn't get applied to the plant itself. It gets put down. I think it's called Eco Brand is what it's called. It's a Omri listed product, and I believe it's wheat bran or some kind of bran, which is like a food for the grasshopper, and then they apply something to it, that when it gets ingested, it fucks up the grasshopper. So you put that down around your garden, kind of as like a perimeter, and you buy it in like big bags. I would assume, if you have a small garden, you could probably get a couple pound bag of it. Um, but you put it down. I used to use this all the time in California when I lived there because grasshoppers were a big issue. Honestly, I don't know how well it worked because I was always out there doing what Kevin just said, knocking them off the plants anyways. But it's something there is an option there. And then this is like a good reason to have some big open flower, natural, beautiful flowers, something that grows naturally around you that will bring in those predatory wasps and stuff like that, because those are the things that will be able to actually hit those when they're smaller. When they're bigger, there's not birds are going to be really your only predator to those. So,
True.
um, yeah. So that concludes the questions there.
All right.
Fun conversation, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in again. We kind of flopped from bioactive reptile world over to gardening again because the show is like the thesis of the show is really just well, yeah, and there's a big parallel to be drawn between these two worlds, I think, and really it's just a fascination with the nature of the soil, um, and trying to simplify processes both in a bioactive reptile enclosure, but also in the garden, as you guys know we love and what we're constantly working in. So, um, yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in. So real quick, or not real quick, but Kev, what's going on in your world? You got anything new on the website or any new plans going?
Yeah, so we've got up on the website. Kid Mac is the dude that has made all my social media stuff, and he's done it. We realized we live in the same town. We live real close to each other, and we become good friends. So um, on my website, there'll be a little link down there at the bottom where you can actually go to his website. OKCalixShop.com. Go to the bottom. He's got some freeze dried candies, just some cool stuff. He's got some genetics that we've done a collab with and things like that. So just go check him out. You might see some things on his page that you might see on my page also. It's no big deal. Go to his page, check it out. He's just starting to get into some breeding. We did a collab, Fat Beard Pothead and I, we did a collab just a little bit ago. OKCalixShop.com. I'll have all kinds of genetics. I've got Nefarious Cherries up there. Nefarious Cherries. That is Dante's Inferno crossed with Very Cherry. Those are regs, I believe.
I kind of like Nefarious Charius.
Yeah, I think it was Nefarious Cherries is what I put first. I don't remember. I've got thousands of cannabis names, probably like most breeders do. But I've also got Blaze Cherries up there, y'all. It's Fem. Blaze Cherries is um Don is that right? Boy, I need my notes. Dante's Inferno, the Very Cherry. Oh yeah, no. Nefarious Cherries is Cherry Warchild crossed to Very Cherry. That's it. Sorry guys. And then Blaze Cherries, who are Fems, that is Dante's Inferno crossed to Very Cherry. Those are Fems. But they're up there. I've got some good price drop. I got some couple things that are dropped up there. I'm gonna probably put some fermented horsetail plant extract up there. I'll be making some of it. A lot of these horsetails are really getting big and tall. Kind of time to cut them down and use them. There's IMO3. There's all kinds of bundles. Go check it out. But also, I want to remind you all because the time is coming. October 19th, me and Jordan from Growcast, we're going to be putting on a class. It's an OK Calix class. It is my class. Growcast is helping sponsor it and get it out and all that stuff. Kev, would you post beans down there? Yeah, I'll send you beans down under. All you got to do is go to Instagram and DM me, or you can email me at okcalix@gmail.com. okcalix@gmail.com. But on March 19th, it's a one-on-one me showing you how to do all kinds of stuff. I already have the syllabus printed out. If you go again, like I said, listen to the Growcast podcast that came out June 10th. And I'll be telling you, I go down the syllabus of all the things that we will be doing. And it's fantastic. It starts off with what I call the circle of rice. And I'm going to be showing you beginning with rice. I'm going to show you all the things that you will be able to make once you begin to understand how rice is used in natural farming. Then we're going to go out into the woods. I'm going to show you how to gather material for IMO3 and IMO4. I'm going to show you all the different ways that you can collect IMO2. I'll already have it out there. It'll already be ready for us to dig up and hunt and find. We'll bring it all back to the house, which is the same property. It's very close together. We'll make it. You guys will take home a ton of stuff. Bokashi, IMO3, IMO4, Labs, EM5. We've got tons of stuff besides, not even to mention all the genetics that Growcast is going to put in, plus all the genetics that I'll be putting in. October 19th, the information will soon come out. It's limited spots. There's only going to be 30 people that we're going to take. We're going to keep it, small as we can, but have it a good little group that people want to come back and do it again. So information is coming. You'll definitely see it on my Instagram page, on Growcast page, and all that stuff. So, what about you, Mark? What you got going on, man?
So it's been a kind of a tough go with just the weather the way it's been. Just the heat and shipping bugs is tough. But appreciate everybody's patience and understanding dealing with things, and we always try to make everything right. So not stopping until we figure out what the issue is has been challenging, but we're getting through it. And it's important for me to be able to rest my head at night knowing that I'm running a good business. So just know that when you spend money with us or when you buy anything from us, that is really the embodiment of our company is trying to make sure that you get the right product. So anytime we make a decision like, hey, we're not going to ship for a week, or we have to ship overnight. There's no way that we can get them there. It's just it's really from a good place. It's not from anything other than trying to get live bugs to people live. They do nothing for you dead. So, um, but I also wanted to shout out Brian. I didn't even shout him out in the beginning of the show, and I'll throw up his website here. Check out Rubber Ducky Isopods. He's off tonight. He was supposed to be here about an hour before the show. His babysitter canceled, so he had to go shift and support the wife at an event for the kids at the school. So just juggling fatherhood and all that kind of just it's another reminder that family does come first, and Brian is a good dad, so he's gonna prioritize that. But
That's right.
uh, sorely missed, Brian. We love you, buddy,
Miss
and
Nine.
yeah, look forward to catching up with you. But great show, man. Always a
Yeah,
pleasure
guys,
getting
appreciate
getting
y'all
into your
for sure.
yeah, it's always a pleasure getting in your brain, Kevin.
Well, good.
Everything you have is just really eloquently said and palatable. That's what I love about you is you're like the translator of the stuff that's so complicated to understand, but it's really not, and just breaking it down so it's simple is a gift that you have, Kev.
Well, I
Lo-
appreciate that, man. Very kind.
Love you, brother.
Yep. Love you too, guys. Appreciate y'all. Let's see you next week. DM me if you need any questions answered. I'll answer them quick, man.
Take it easy, guys. Till next week, keep it organic.